My mother's voice sliced through the hushed murmurs of the old wooden church, announcing they'd sold Grandma Ingrid's sapphire ring before her casket was even lowered into the ground. I stood frozen. Isadora Vance, 34, a historian at Marquette's local history museum, my black dress clinging to me like the weight of betrayal. The air was thick with the scent of polished pews and wilting lilies, the chill from Lake Superior seeping through the stained glass windows, but nothing felt colder than my family's callous dismissal of Grandma's promise to me. That ring, her grandfather's gift, forged through Marquette's brutal winters, was my inheritance, a symbol of her resilience, and they'd turned it into a transaction while I was still wiping tears from my face. My mother, the woman who raised me, stood at the pulpit, her smile polished, her words dripping with false grief. "It's for the best, to honor Ingrid's legacy," she said, as if my pain was irrelevant. My father, the man who stayed silent, nodded beside her, his stoic mask hiding a coward's heart. The congregation murmured approval, oblivious to the theft, but I saw the truth in their eyes. My family was rewriting my history, painting me as the ungrateful daughter. Nathan leaned against a pew, his tailored suit screaming ambition, a smirk playing on his lips. "It's already promised, Dora," he said, loud enough for the front rows to hear, his voice laced with mockery. "Promised? To who?" The word was a spark, igniting my rage. Lila, my younger sister, fidgeted beside him, her hands twisting her scarf, her eyes darting away from mine. She was always their pawn, fragile and eager to please, but her guilt was a crack I could pry open. The church, with its creaking beams and flickering candles, felt like a stage for their performance, every word calculated to keep me small. I'd spent years caring for Grandma, sacrificing my own dreams while Nathan built his real estate empire and Lila leaned on my parents' coddling. Now, they were cashing in on her memory, and I was the only one who cared. My mother's eyes met mine, sharp and unyielding, daring me to challenge her. "You wouldn't understand, Isadora," she said, her tone a blade wrapped in silk. "It's for the community." The community? The lie was so blatant it burned that I stepped forward. My heels echoing in the silence, my voice steady despite the fire in my chest. "Grandma wanted me to have that ring. You knew that." The congregation shifted, whispers rippling like waves, but my mother didn't flinch. "Don't be selfish," she snapped, her smile never wavering. "It's just a ring. My father's." Silence was louder than her words, his refusal to meet my gaze a confirmation of his complicity. Nathan chuckled, low and cruel. "Let it go, Dora. It's done." But his eyes betrayed a flicker of unease, a hint that "promised" meant more than a sale. I caught a name in his lowered voice, murmured to my father, "Councilman Reed." Reed? The man whose bribery scandal had rocked Marquette decades ago? My historian's instincts kicked in, connecting dots they couldn't hide. The ring wasn't just sold, it was collateral for a deal, a secret transaction with a man whose hands were as dirty as Nathan's ambition. I didn't scream, didn't cry. Instead, I memorized their faces, my mother's calculated calm, my father's averted eyes, Nathan's smug grin, Lila's trembling hands. They thought they'd won, burying Grandma's promise with her, but they'd underestimated me. I'd spent years unearthing Marquette's secrets, piecing together truths from fragments, and this was no different. The church's wooden walls seemed to close in, the congregation's eyes heavy with judgment, but I stood taller. What kind of family sells your legacy before the dirt settles on your grave? I ask you, share this story if you've ever been betrayed by those you trusted most. My mother's lie, Nathan's slip about Reed, Lila's guilt, they were clues. And I'd follow them. The ring was more than a jewel, it was a key to their lies, and I'd dig until I exposed every one. As I walked out, the wind off the lake biting my face, I felt Grandma's strength in me. They'd started this war, but I'd finish it. In court, where their masks would fall, the church's betrayal still burned in my chest as I climbed the creaking stairs to the attic of Grandma Ingrid's abandoned Victorian, the air heavy with dust and the ghosts of her stories. My mother's voice, declaring the sale of the sapphire ring at the funeral, echoed like a slap, while Nathan's slip about Councilman Reed being the buyer hinted at a deal dirtier than grief. I wasn't here to mourn anymore, I was here to hunt, my historian's instincts pulling me to the relics of our family's past. The attic was a maze of forgotten trunks and moth-eaten linens, lit only by a single bulb swaying in the draft from Lake Superior's wind. My fingers brushed a wooden chest, its lock rusted but intact, and inside, beneath a pile of faded letters, I found a hand-stitched tapestry, its intricate Nordic runes glowing in the dim light. A date was embroidered in the corner, 1995, alongside a cryptic phrase, "What was taken, remains." My breath caught. This wasn't just a keepsake, it was a clue, a whisper from Grandma about something stolen long before the ring. I traced the runes, my mind racing. Grandma had taught me about Marquette's Nordic heritage, the symbols of protection and legacy, but this felt personal, urgent. The year 1995 nagged at me, why mark it? My mother's polished lies at the church, my father's complicit silence. Nathan's smug, it's promised, to read, they were hiding something, and this tapestry was a thread in their web. I tucked it into my bag, my hand steady despite the rage simmering beneath my skin. Downstairs, the house's peeling wallpaper and sagging floors felt like a mirror of my family's decay, but I wasn't alone. Lila's car pulled up outside, her silhouette hesitant in the dusk. She'd been twitchy at the funeral, her guilt a beacon, and I'd texted her to meet me here, away from my mother's grip. Isadora, she said, stepping inside, her voice barely above a whisper, why are we here? Her eyes darted to the tapestry in my hands, widening with recognition. She knows something. I held up the tapestry, my voice low but sharp. What happened in 1995, Lila? What did they take? Her face paled, her hands twisting her scarf, a nervous tic I'd seen since childhood. I don't know what you mean, she stammered, but her eyes betrayed her, flicking to the floor. I stepped closer, my historian's precision cutting through her dodge. This tapestry says otherwise. Grandma marked it for a reason. Lila's breath hitched, and she blurted, it was just family stuff. Mom said it was for the best. The best? The lie was flimsy, but her panic was real. I pressed harder, my voice a blade. What family stuff? Selling Grandma's things behind her back. Lila flinched, and in that moment, I saw it, a memory she couldn't hide. They sold her pottery, she whispered, her voice breaking. Not all of it, but a lot. They said it was to save the house. Pottery? The revelation hit like a shockwave. Grandma's collection, handcrafted pieces she'd poured her soul into, wasn't in the museum like I'd thought. It was gone, sold in 1995, the same year as the tapestry's mark. My mother's charity excuse at the church was a lie, and Lila's confession was the first crack in their armor. But there was more, she was holding back. I softened my tone, playing the sister she trusted. Who did they sell it to, Lila? Her eyes darted away, and she mumbled, I don't know, someone important. Nathan handled it. Nathan. His name was a second jolt, tying the pottery to his deal with Reed. I stepped back, letting her think I'd let it go, but my mind was mapping the connections. 1995, the pottery, Reed's bribery scandal. The tapestry wasn't just a relic. It was a map to their betrayal. I left Lila trembling in the doorway and drove to my apartment, the tapestry on the passenger seat like a silent witness. My phone buzzed with a notification, an ex-post from a local historian group, mentioning a 1995 estate sale linked to Vance family artifacts. My blood ran cold. The sale was public, but my family had buried it, spinning it as a donation. To dodge scrutiny. What kind of family erases your legacy and calls it charity? I ask you, share this if you've ever uncovered a lie that broke your heart. The attic's discovery was my weapon, and Nathan's deal with Reed was the next thread to pull. I'd dig deeper, starting with Lila's slip and the name she wouldn't say. They thought they could bury Grandma's truth, but I was unearthing it, piece by piece, for the courtroom fight ahead. The Nordic Light Festival's lanterns cast a mocking glow over Marquette's community hall, their warmth a lie against the betrayal burning in my chest from the church and the attic's secrets. The tapestry's Nordic rune and 1995 date, Lila's whispered confession about the sold pottery, they were pieces of a theft my family had buried, and now my mother stood on the stage, holding Grandma Ingrid's sapphire ring like a prize. Her voice smooth as frost. A family heirloom, she declared, to fund our museum's future. The crowd clapped, swayed by her performance, but I stood at the back, my black coat heavy with grief, my eyes locked on her calculated smile. They'd sold the ring, my inheritance, Grandma's promise, without a word to me, and Nathan's slip about Councilman Reed at the funeral hinted at a deal far uglier than charity. My father sat in the front row, his silence a wall, while Nathan lounged nearby, his new watch glinting with money he shouldn't have. Lila, beside him, twisted her hands, her guilt a shadow I could almost touch. The hall buzzed with mulled wine and chatter, but I was a historian, trained to see through facades, and this was no fundraiser, it was a public theft. I edged closer, my heels silent on the hardwood, catching Nathan's low voice as he leaned toward a man in a gray suit, Councilman Reed, his face familiar from old scandal headlines. It's yours, as agreed, Nathan murmured, clears the debt. Debt? The word was a jolt, my blood running cold. Reed's nod was subtle, but I caught it, a signal that turned the ring into a pawn in a game I hadn't seen coming. My mother's voice carried on, announcing bids starting at 5,000, the crowd's hands rising like vultures. I could have stormed the stage, screamed the truth, but that would have played into their hands, letting them paint me as unhinged. Instead, I watched, memorizing every glance, every lie. My mother's eyes flicked to Nathan, a flash of approval, while my father's gaze stayed fixed on the floor, his complicity a weight I felt across the room. Lila's head snapped up, meeting my eyes for a split second, her face pale with something like fear. What does she know? I slipped through the crowd, my mind racing. Reed wasn't just a buyer. He was a player in a 1990s bribery scandal, a man who'd traded favors for power. Nathan's debt wasn't just money, it was leverage, and the ring was the price. I found Hank Ballard near the exit, his antique dealer's hands stuffed in his pockets, his eyes uneasy from our earlier talk at the church. "Hank," I said, my voice low, "what's Nathan's deal with Reed?" He shifted, glancing at the stage where bids hit 8,000. "Not here, Isadora," he muttered, but his hesitation cracked open. "Nathan came to my shop last week, said the ring was spoken for. Reed's been after Nordic pieces for years, never buys, just asks." His words were a bomb, tying the ring to the pottery Lila mentioned, to 1995, to a pattern of theft my family had hidden. "Why does a councilman want Grandma's ring?" I stepped back, letting the crowd's noise swallow me, but my focus sharpened. Nathan moved to the stage, his swagger infuriating, and took the microphone. "Let's push this to 10,000, he said, his charm masking the lie. The crowd cheered, but I saw Reed's subtle signal to a woman in the back, Clara Henshaw, a museum donor, her phone glowing with a message she quickly hid. Another player? My historian's instinct screamed, this wasn't just a sale, it was a transaction layered with secrets, and Clara's presence meant the museum was involved. I posted a quick X update from my phone, cryptic but sharp, Marquette's history is being auctioned tonight. Who's really buying? It was a spark, meant to stir whispers, and within minutes, notifications buzzed, locals questioning the ring's fate. My mother's smile faltered as she glanced at her phone, Nathan's jaw tightened, and I knew I'd rattled them. What kind of family sells your legacy to a crook? I ask you, share this if you've ever been betrayed by those you trusted most. The festival was their stage, but I was writing the next act, and the courtroom would be my battleground. My phone was a live grenade, Marquette's X pages erupting with clips of my mother auctioning Grandma Ingrid's sapphire ring at the Nordic Light Festival, her voice dripping with fake charity while Nathan's whisper to Councilman Reed, "It's yours, clears the debt," replayed in my mind like a taunt. The tapestry's Nordic rune and Lila's confession about the 1995 pottery sale had cracked open their lies, but I needed more than fragments to dismantle the machine of deceit that painted me as the ungrateful daughter. The brood awakening was alive with the clatter of coffee cups and the hum of gossip, Marquette's locals glued to their screens, dissecting the festival's drama. I'd gone rogue an hour ago, live streaming on X from my car parked by Lake Superior's edge, the wind howling as I spoke. My family sold my grandmother's ring to cover Nathan's dirty deal with Councilman Reed. Marquette deserves the truth. Who's buying our history? The post hit like a spark in dry grass, 3,000 views in minutes, hashtags like #VanceFamilyScandal trending, locals tagging Nathan and Reed, demanding answers. I sat in a corner booth, my coffee cooling, watching the room for reactions, my historian's instinct sharp as ever. Clara Henshaw, a museum donor with a knack for gossip, was at a nearby table, her phone glowing with the same X thread. Her voice was low, but I caught it. "Nathan's been cozy with Reed at that lakefront condo site. It's not just the ring, there's bigger money involved." Bigger money? My pulse surged. The ring wasn't just a payoff, it was tied to a land grab, a gentrification scheme ripping Marquette's heart out. I slid closer, my voice casual, but pointed. "Clara, what's Reed chasing with Nathan?" She froze, her fingers tightening on her phone, then leaned in. "Reed's pushing to rezone the lakefront for Apex Global's luxury condos. Nathan's handing over family assets to seal it." Apex Global. The name hit like a sledgehammer, a multinational real estate giant circling Marquette's shores. Grandma's ring, her pottery, the 1995 sale, they weren't just thefts, they were currency in a corporate game. I thanked Clara, my mind mapping the connections. Nathan's debt, Reed's old bribery scandal, a company buying up my family's legacy. I needed Lila, the weak link who'd cracked in the attic. I texted her, "Meet me at the pier. Now." She arrived, her hoodie pulled tight, eyes red like she'd been crying. "Isadora, I didn't mean to hurt you," she blurted, her voice shaking. I stayed silent, letting her unravel. "Nathan made me help him get into Grandma's old email. He was hunting for something about a trust from 1995. Email?" My blood ran cold. Lila, my fragile sister, wasn't just complicit, she'd hacked into Grandma's digital vault for Nathan. But then she shoved her phone at me, a screenshot of a chat between Nathan and an unknown number. "Reed's not the buyer. Apex Global wants the ring. It's the key to the trust." The key? The revelation was a gut punch. Reed was a middleman, and the ring wasn't just a jewel, it was proof of a hidden estate, tied to the tapestry's 1995 mark. Lila's eyes begged for forgiveness, but I saw her guilt as a weapon. Why help me now? I asked, my voice ice. I thought I was saving us, she whispered, but it's wrong. Her betrayal stung, but her confession was my leverage. I drove to Hank Ballard's antique shop, its cluttered shelves a stark contrast to the sleek condo plans Apex was pushing. Hank was polishing a brass lamp, his hands unsteady when he saw me. Your live stream's got everyone talking, Isadora, he said, his voice low. I cut to the chase. What does Apex Global want with the ring, Hank? His eyes widened, his cloth dropping. How'd you know? Nathan brought it to me. For appraisal last week. Apex had it valued, not for the gem, but for a provenance link to a bigger estate. Provenance link. The third blow landed. The ring was a marker, proof of ownership for a trust my family had buried. Hank didn't know more, but his slip confirmed a corporate shadow behind Nathan's deal. My live stream had shaken them, and I doubled down, posting on X, the ring's just the start. Apex Global's buying Marquette's soul, who's selling? It exploded, 6,000 views. In an hour, locals flooding the comments. My mother called, her voice venomous. You're ruining us, Isadora. I hung up, her panic my fuel. What kind of family trades your heritage for a corporate empire? I ask you, share this if you fought a betrayal this deep. The town was watching, and I was building my case, one post at a time, for the courtroom showdown ahead. I returned to my apartment, the tapestry spread across my table, its runes glowing under the lamp. Lila's screenshot burned in my pocket, and Hank's words echoed, Apex Global, a trust, a provenance link. My mother's lies, my father's silence, Nathan's greed, they thought they could erase Grandma's legacy, but I was piecing it together. Lila's confession was a start, but she was still hiding something, and I'd get it out of her. I pulled up my laptop, diving into public records on Apex Global. A recent X post from a local activist caught my eye. Apex is buying up lakefront lots through shell companies. Reads their frontman. My heart raced. Nathan's debt was tied to a land grab, and the ring was their bargaining chip. I needed to corner Lila again, away from my mother's reach, and get the full story on that trust. My phone buzzed with another notification. Clara, replying to my post, check the museum's old donor logs. Your family's name is all over them. Donor logs? Another lead, another crack. I wasn't just fighting for the ring anymore, I was fighting for everything Grandma built. The lake's wind rattled my windows, but my resolve was iron. My family thought they could control the narrative, but I was rewriting it. Every X post, every whispered rumor in the coffee shop, was a step toward exposing them. Nathan's deal with Apex, Lila's hacked emails, Hank's slip, they were threads in a web I'd unravel. I called Lila, my voice calm but unyielding. We're not done. Meet me tomorrow at the museum. She hesitated, then agreed, her voice trembling. My mother's call came again, but I let it go to voicemail, her desperation a sign I was closing in. The courtroom loomed, and I'd be ready with evidence they couldn't bury. What kind of family sells your legacy to a corporation? I ask you, share this if you've ever had to fight for what's yours. The ring was the key, and I'd unlock their secrets, no matter the cost. I walked to the museum after dark, its quiet halls a contrast to the storm brewing online. The donor logs Clara mentioned were locked in the archives, but I had a key from my years curating exhibits. The air was stale, the shelves lined with Marquette's history, but I was after my own. I found the 1995 log, a leather-bound book with yellowed pages, and there it was, Vance family donation, Nordic artifacts, pottery, valued at $50,000. Donation. The word was a lie, masking a sale Lila had hinted at. My fingers traced the entry, and a name jumped out, Reed, listed as the appraiser. My stomach twisted. He wasn't just buying the ring now, he'd been circling our family for decades. I snapped a photo, my hand steady, and posted it to X. With a caption, donations or deals? The truth lies in the ledgers. The post surged, 8,000 views by midnight, locals tagging the mayor, demanding an investigation. My mother's next call was frantic, but I didn't answer. I was done playing their game. The next morning, I met Lila at the museum's back entrance, her face pale, her hands clutching a USB drive. I found this in Nathan's office, she whispered, shoving it into my hand. It's emails from Grandma's account. I didn't want to, but he made me. I took it, my heart pounding. What's on it, Lila? Her eyes welled up. Proof they sold more than pottery. There's a trust, Isadora, and the ring's tied to it. A trust. The word was a bombshell, confirming Hank's hint and Clara's lead. I plugged the drive into my laptop, scanning the files, emails from 1995, Grandma pleading with my mother to protect the family estate, not sell it. One line stood out, the ring is the key to the vault. Don't let them take it. Vault? My mind reeled. The ring wasn't just symbolic, it was literal, a key to something hidden, something Apex Global wanted. Lila grabbed my arm, her voice urgent. Nathan knows you're digging. He's meeting Reed tonight. I nodded, my plan forming. I'd follow them, catch them in the act, and turn their secrets into my ammunition. I tailed Nathan to a sleek office by the lake, its glass walls reflecting the moonlight. Reed was there, his suit crisp, his voice low as they spoke behind closed doors. I couldn't hear, but I recorded from my car, my phone's camera catching their silhouettes. Nathan handed over a small box, too small for the ring, but enough to make Reed nod. My ex-post that night was fire, caught Nathan and Reed at the lakefront office. What's in the box? It hit 10,000 views, locals flooding the comments with speculation. My mother's texts came in a flurry. Stop this, Isadora. I ignored her, my focus on the USB drive. The emails were a goldmine, detailing a trust Grandma set up in 1995, tied to a lakefront property, now the site Apex wanted. The ring was the key to a vault holding deeds, artifacts, millions. My family hadn't just sold Grandma's legacy. They'd sold Marquette's future. I was ready for Lila's next meeting, for Reed's next move, for the courtroom where I'd bury them all. The museum's donor logs and Lila's USB drive sat heavy in my bag, their weight a reminder of the lies I'd uncovered, Nathan's deal with Apex Global, Reed's role as their puppet, the ring as a key to a hidden trust. My live stream had set Marquette ablaze, with locals on X demanding answers about the lakefront sellout, but my mother's frantic voicemails only sharpened my resolve. I stood outside the old family cabin by Lake Superior, its weathered boards creaking under the wind's assault, a place Grandma Ingrid had loved but my parents had neglected. Lila was waiting inside, her face pale, her hands clutching a thermos like a lifeline. She'd been unraveling since the museum, her guilt over hacking Grandma's emails a crack I'd widened, but I needed more, proof of what else they'd stolen. The cabin's air was thick with mildew and memories, the kind that clung to my skin like damp fog. I didn't soften. What else did they sell, Lila? I asked, my voice a blade honed by betrayal. Her eyes flicked to the floor. And I knew she was hiding another wound. She hesitated, her fingers twisting the thermos lid, then spoke, her voice barely above the lake's distant roar. It wasn't just the pottery in '95. They sold Grandma's entire ceramic collection, her life's work, to a private buyer. Her life's work. The words hit like a punch, stealing my breath. Grandma's ceramics, each piece etched with Nordic patterns, weren't just art. They were her legacy, meant for the museum, not some collector's vault. I leaned closer, my eyes locking on hers. Who bought them? Lila swallowed, her voice trembling. They called it a donation, but it was to pay off Dad's gambling debts. Mom arranged it, said it was for the family. Gambling debts? The revelation was a seismic shift, exposing my father's stoic facade as a lie, his silence not dignity but shame. My mother's charity auctions, her saintly act at the festival, were a cover for their greed, and Lila's confession was the first brick pulled from their wall. I paced the cabin, my boots scuffing the warped floor, my mind racing. The pottery sale in 1995, the ring, the trust, they were pieces of a theft that spanned decades, orchestrated by my mother and enabled by my father's cowardice. Nathan's deal with Apex Global was just the latest move, but Lila's role in it burned deeper. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I demanded, stopping to face her. Her eyes welled up, but I didn't soften. I thought I was helping them, she whispered. Mom said the debts would ruin us, and Nathan, he promised me a cut if I kept quiet. A cut. The second blow landed, Lila's complicity sharper than I'd expected. My sister, the one I'd protected, wasn't just a pawn, she'd bargained with my family's legacy for a payoff. But her tears were real, and her handing over the USB drive was a betrayal of Nathan, a sign she was breaking. I seized it, my voice low. What else is on that drive? She shook her head, but her glance at the cabin's fireplace was a tell. Something's here. I crossed to the hearth, its stones blackened by years of use, and noticed a loose brick, its edges worn smooth. My fingers pried it free, revealing a small tin box, rusted but sealed. Inside was a single letter, Grandma's handwriting shaky but clear. The ceramics were my heart, meant for Isadora. Evelyn sold them to hide Harold's shame. The trust holds the rest, guard it. My heart stopped. The letter was a grenade, proof my mother had orchestrated the sale to cover my father's debts, not for charity, and it tied to the trust Nathan was chasing. Lila gasped, her hand covering her mouth. I didn't know it was there, she said, but her voice cracked, betraying her lie. She'd known about the box, maybe even planted it for Nathan to find later, but her handing me the USB was her breaking point, a step toward redemption I'd exploit. I pocketed the letter, my plan sharpening. You're with me now, Lila, or you're with them, I said, my tone final. She nodded, tears falling, but I didn't trust her fully. Not yet. Back in my apartment, I uploaded a new post. Careful but incendiary, Marquette's history isn't for sale, but my family's selling it piece by piece. Who's hiding debts behind donations? The post surged, 12,000 views in hours, locals tagging my mother and father, the museum board, even Apex Global. My phone lit up with notifications, including a text from Clara Henshaw. Check the 1995 tax records. Your dad's name's on a lien. Helene. Another thread to pull, tying my father's debts to the pottery sale. I dove into public records online, finding a 1995 lien against our family home, paid off by an unnamed donor linked to Reed's old firm. My mother's voice rang in my head, her lies about family unity crumbling. I called Lila again. My voice cold. Meet me at the library tomorrow. We're digging deeper. She agreed, her voice shaky, but I sensed her fear of Nathan growing. What kind of family sells your grandmother's heart to cover their sins? I ask you, share this. If you've ever had to fight for what was stolen from you. The cabin's letter was my weapon, and the courtroom was coming closer, where their lies would burn out. I drove to the library that night, its quiet stacks a refuge from the storm I'd unleashed online. The 1995 tax records were public but buried, and I spent hours sifting through microfiche, my eyes burning. There it was, a lien for $60,000, tied to my father's name, settled by a payment from a shell company linked to Reed. My mother's signature was on the paperwork, her careful script a betrayal in ink. I snapped photos, my hands steady, and sent them to a private folder, building my case. My phone buzzed with another notification. A local journalist, Tom Carver, had retweeted my post, digging into the Vance family's donations. Stay tuned. My heart raced. Tom wasn't in my orbit yet, but his interest was a spark. I'd fan later. I left the library, the lake's wind biting my face, and checked my messages. Lila had sent a cryptic text, Nathan's meeting Reed again. Be careful. I smiled, a cold, calculated edge to it. I'd be there, watching, recording, turning their secrets into my leverage. The next evening, I parked near Reed's lakefront office, its glass facade gleaming under streetlights. Nathan's car was there, and I caught their silhouettes through the window, Reed gesturing animatedly, Nathan pacing. I recorded again. My phone's lens steady, catching Nathan handing over a folder, not a box this time. My post was surgical, another late-night deal at the lakefront. What's Nathan selling now? It hit 15,000 views, Marquette's locals in a frenzy, some calling for a town hall. My mother's next call was a scream, "You're destroying everything." I let it go to voicemail, her desperation music to my ears. The letter, the lien, Lila's USB, they were building a case, but I needed more. I texted Lila, find me anything on that trust. Now. Her reply was instant, I'm trying. Nathan's watching me. I didn't care. She'd deliver, or I'd drag her down. With them. I returned to the cabin alone, its dark windows staring back like eyes. The letter had mentioned a trust, and Grandma's words, guard it, echoed. I searched the fireplace again, finding nothing, but noticed a loose floorboard near the hearth. Prying it up, I found a small key, etched with a Nordic rune matching the tapestry. My breath caught. It wasn't the ring, it was another key, maybe to the vault Grandma mentioned. I pocketed it, my mind racing. Nathan thought the ring was the key, but this was the real one, hidden where he'd never look. I posted one last update, some legacies are hidden in plain sight. Who's guarding yours? It exploded, 20,000 views, locals sharing stories of their own family betrayals. My family thought they'd buried Grandma's truth, but I was unearthing it, piece by piece, for the courtroom war ahead. I met Lila at the library the next morning, her face drawn, her hands shaking as she handed me a crumpled note. I found this in Nathan's desk, she whispered. It's about the trust. The note was a memo from 1995, Reed's handwriting listing assets, ceramics, land, artifacts, all transferred to a trust under my mother's control. One line stood out, Harold's debts cleared. Evelyn to manage. My father's. Shame, my mother's grip, it was all there, in black and white. Lila's eyes begged for mercy, but I was past forgiveness. You're in this with me now, I said, my voice steel. She nodded, her fear of Nathan outweighing her loyalty to my mother. I was closing in, the key in my pocket, the memo in my hand, and Tom's interest growing. The courtroom was near, and I'd make them pay for every piece they stole, the library's dim glow felt like a sanctuary, its shelves heavy with Marquette's secrets, but the key etched with a Nordic rune and Lila's crumpled memo about the 1995 trust burned in my pocket, fuel for the fire I'd lit with my posts. My mother's screams through voicemail, Nathan's late-night deals with Reed, and Lila's confession about the pottery sale to cover my father's debts, they were pieces of a betrayal I was piecing together, each one a step toward the courtroom. I needed more, something undeniable, and Margaret Hensley, the librarian who'd known Grandma Ingrid, was my next move. Her office was a cluttered cave of old tapes and yellowed files, the air thick with the scent of aged paper and coffee. She looked up from her desk, her glasses slipping, and her eyes held a spark of recognition when I walked in. "Isadora," she said, her voice soft but sharp, "I've been waiting for you." Waiting? The word was a jolt, hinting she knew more than I'd expected. I didn't waste time. "Margaret, what did Grandma leave here?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm in my chest. She stood, moving to a locked cabinet, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled out a small cassette, its label faded but legible, Ingrid Vance, 1995. My heart stopped. "She recorded this after a fight with your mother," Margaret said, sliding it into an ancient player. Grandma's voice crackled through, strong but weary, each word a blade. "Evelyn forced me to sign over the trust. Harold's debts were bleeding us dry, and she said it was the only way. They took my ceramics, my land, everything I built for Isadora. Forced." The revelation hit like a sledgehammer, exposing my mother's manipulation not just as greed but as coercion, stripping Grandma of her power. Margaret's eyes met mine, steady but heavy. "She left this for you, said you'd come looking one day." The first twist landed. Grandma hadn't just been betrayed, she'd been silenced, her legacy stolen while she was still alive. I gripped the cassette, my knuckles white, as Grandma's voice continued, detailing a trust meant to protect lakefront property and artifacts for me, not Apex Global or Nathan's schemes. "The ring was my proof," she said, her voice breaking, "but Evelyn took it, said it was for the family." The ring. Not just a key, but evidence of a crime my mother had orchestrated. My father's silence, his complicity, was no longer just cowardice, it was surrender to her control. I looked at Margaret, my voice low. "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She sighed, her hands folding tightly. "Your mother threatened to shut down the library if I spoke. But your posts on X, they're waking people up." Her words were a second shock. My mother's reach extended beyond our family, intimidating even Marquette's keepers of history. My live streams, my accusations about Reed and Apex, had loosened her grip, and Margaret's tape was my weapon. I left the library, the cassette tucked beside the key, and headed to Brood Awakening, where Tom Carver was waiting. The journalist had retweeted my last post, his interest a spark I'd fanned with a quick message, "Meet me. I've got proof." The cafe buzzed with locals, their eyes flicking to me, whispers trailing my steps after my ex-posts hit 20,000 views. Tom sat in a corner, his notebook open, his pen tapping. "You're stirring a hornet's nest, Isadora," he said, his voice low but eager. I slid the cassette across the table, my eyes locked on his. "Play this." It's Grandma's voice. Proof my mother forced her to give up everything. He listened, his jaw tightening as Grandma's words filled the space between us. "This changes everything," he muttered, scribbling notes. "I've been digging into Reed's deals, there's a paper trail linking him to Apex Global's shell companies. Your family's tied to it. A paper trail." The third blow landed, connecting my mother's theft to Nathan's land grab, a conspiracy bigger than I'd imagined. I posted on X from the cafe, my words a calculated strike. My grandmother's voice was silenced, her legacy stolen. "Marquette, who's protecting your history?" The post exploded, 25,000 views in an hour, locals sharing stories of their own stolen inheritances, tagging the mayor, demanding a town hall. My mother's next call was a hiss, "You're tearing us apart, Isadora." I hung up, her panic a sign I was closing in. Tom leaned forward, his voice urgent. "I found a 1995 transfer record. Your mother signed over lakefront deeds to a company tied to Reed. It's fraud, but we need more to nail them." I nodded, my mind racing. The cassette, the key, the memo, they were building my case, but I needed Lila to deliver again. I texted her, "Find Nathan's meeting schedule with Reed. Now." Her reply was shaky, "He's watching me, but I'll try." I didn't trust her fully, but her fear of Nathan was my leverage. That night, I tailed Nathan to a warehouse by the lake, its rusted doors a stark contrast to his sleek car. Reed was there, his silhouette sharp against the moonlight. And I recorded from my car, my phone capturing their heated exchange. Nathan's voice carried, sharp and desperate, "Apex wants the trust documents, not just the ring." My heart raced. Grandma's trust wasn't just land, it was a fortune they were chasing. I posted the clip on X, blurred but damning, late night. "Deals by the lake. What's Apex Global hiding?" It hit 30,000 views, Marquette's locals in a frenzy, some calling for Reed's resignation. My father texted, his first message in weeks, "Stop this, Isadora. For the family." I ignored it, his plea a hollow echo of his silence. The cassette was my trump card, but I needed the trust documents to seal their fate. I drove to the museum. Its archives my next target, knowing Grandma had hidden more clues. In the museum's basement, the air was cold and heavy, the shelves lined with Marquette's forgotten stories. I found a box labeled Vance Family Donations, its contents a lie, photos of Grandma's ceramics, marked as gifted in 1995, but cross-referenced with Reed's firm. My mother's signature was everywhere, a trail of betrayal in ink. I snapped photos, my hand steady, and sent them to Tom with a note, "Publish this." His reply was instant, "This is dynamite. Meet me tomorrow." I left the museum, the lake's wind howling, and checked X. My post was viral, 35,000 views, locals organizing a protest outside Reed's office. My mother's next voicemail was a sob, "You're ruining us." I deleted it, her tears meaningless. What kind of family forces their own to give up everything? I ask you, share this if you've ever fought to reclaim what's yours. The courtroom was close, and Grandma's voice would echo through it, exposing their lies. I met Lila at dawn by the pier, her face drawn, her hands clutching a notebook. "I stole this from Nathan's car," she whispered, shoving it into my hands. "It's his plans with Apex." The pages detailed meetings, payouts, and a map of the lakefront, marked with the trust's boundaries. One note stood out, "Evelyn to deliver ring to Apex rep, vault location still unknown." My mother was still in the game, and the ring was their key. Lila's eyes begged for trust, but I kept my voice cold. "You're with me or them, Lila." She nodded, her fear palpable. I pocketed the notebook, my plan sharpening. Tom's article was coming, Margaret's tape was ready, and the key in my pocket was my ace. I posted one last X update, "The truth is louder than their lies. Marquette, stand with me." It hit 40,000 views, the town alive with outrage. My family thought they could bury Grandma's legacy, but I was resurrecting it, one piece a day. Time, for the courtroom fight ahead. The Nordic rune key in my pocket felt like a pulse. Its weight a constant reminder of Grandma Ingrid's trust, stolen by my mother's schemes and my father's weakness, while Nathan's warehouse deal with Reed and Apex Global loomed like a storm over Marquette. My ex-posts had ignited a firestorm, 40,000 views, locals rallying for a town hall, but I needed more than outrage to bury my family's lies. Hank Ballard's antique shop was my next stop, its cluttered shelves a maze of forgotten treasures, the air thick with polish and secrets. He was behind the counter, his hands busy with a tarnished candlestick, but his eyes darted to me, wary, as if he sensed the grenade I was carrying. My live streams, Margaret's cassette exposing my mother's coercion, and Lila's stolen notebook had tightened the noose, but Hank held a piece I hadn't placed yet. "Hank," I said, my voice low, deliberate, "what's Nathan hiding in your shop?" His hands froze, the candlestick clattering to the counter. He knows. He hesitated, his gaze flicking to the back room, then leaned closer, his voice a whisper. "Nathan didn't sell the ring, Isadora. It's here, locked in my safe." Locked in his safe. The revelation hit like a thunderclap, rewriting everything. Nathan hadn't handed the ring to Reed at the festival or the warehouse, he'd stashed it, believing it was the key to Grandma's vault. My heart raced, but I kept my face still, my historian's instincts locking onto his every twitch. "Why keep it here?" I pressed, stepping closer, my eyes pinning him. Hank's shoulders sagged, his voice cracking. "He thinks it unlocks a fortune, artifacts, deeds, something big in your family's old house. He told me to hold it until Apex gives him a better deal." A fortune. The first shock landed. Nathan wasn't just paying debts, he was gambling on a hidden jackpot, using Grandma's ring as leverage. My mother's frantic calls, my father's pleas, they weren't about loss. They were about control over a prize they'd all betrayed. I didn't blink, didn't let my rage show. "Show me," I said, my tone ice. Hank led me to the back, his hands shaking as he opened a rusted safe, revealing a velvet box. Inside was Grandma's sapphire ring, its deep blue catching the dim light, a symbol of her trust and their theft. My breath caught, but I buried the ache, focusing on the second blow. Nathan's greed had kept the ring in play, not sold, giving me a chance to reclaim it. "Who else knows it's here?" I asked, my voice steady. Hank's eyes widened. "Just Nathan, and maybe your mother. She called yesterday, asking if I'd moved it." My mother. Her involvement wasn't just past betrayal, she was still pulling strings, ensuring Nathan's plan stayed on track. I took a photo of the ring, my hand steady, and slipped it back into the box. "Don't tell them I was here," I warned, my gaze ablade. Hank nodded, fear in his eyes, but I didn't trust him, he'd crack if Nathan leaned harder. I left the shop, the lake's wind biting my face, and headed to my apartment, the ring's image burning in my phone. I posted on X, cryptic but sharp, "Some treasures are hidden in plain sight, waiting for the truth to claim them. Marquette, what's Your family hiding? The post surged, 50,000 views in hours, locals speculating about the ring, Apex, and Reed's shady deals. Tom Carver texted, got your photos. Article's out tomorrow, your family's done. My mother's voicemail came next, her voice. A mix of fury and fear, Isadora, stop this now. I deleted it, her desperation a sign I was winning. Lila's notebook, Margaret's cassette, and now the ring, they were my arsenal, but I needed to know where Nathan thought the vault was. I texted Lila, where's Nathan searching for the vault? Her reply was instant, frantic, he's at the old house tonight. Be careful. I grabbed my coat, the Nordic key heavy in my pocket, and drove to the ancestral home, its sagging silhouette a ghost under the moon. The house was dark, its windows like empty eyes, but Nathan's car was parked out front, his flashlight beam flickering inside. I crept through the back door, my boots silent on the warped floor, the air thick with dust and memory. Nathan was in the study, prying at a wall panel, muttering about the vault. I stayed in the shadows, my phone recording, catching his words, the ring's the key, but it's got to be here. He's wrong. The third shock hit, the key in my pocket, not the ring, was what Grandma meant, hidden where Nathan would never look. I slipped upstairs, my heart pounding, and found the attic door ajar. The tapestry from weeks ago lay crumpled on the floor, its runes matching the key's etching. I knelt, my fingers tracing the floorboards, and found a hidden latch, a small trapdoor. It didn't open, but the key fit perfectly, clicking softly. The vault. I didn't lift it, not yet. Nathan's footsteps were too close, his frustration echoing below. I retreated, my mind racing, and posted the video on X, blurred but damning, searching for stolen legacies in the dark. Who's hiding the truth? It hit 60,000 views, Marquettes. Locals in a frenzy, some planning to confront Reed at the next council meeting. My father texted again, this isn't what she wanted, Isadora. She. Grandma. His mention of her was a knife, but I ignored it, my focus on the vault. I met Lila at dawn by the pier, her face pale, her hands shaking. He didn't find anything, she whispered, but he's furious. I showed her the key, my voice cold. This is what opens the vault, not the ring. Help me, or I tell everyone you hid it. Her eyes widened, fear overtaking guilt. I'll get you his plans, she said, her voice breaking. I nodded, my plan solidifying. Tom's article, the cassette, the key, they'd bury my family in court back at my apartment. I studied Lila's notebook, its pages detailing Nathan's obsession with the vault, sketches of the house, Apex's offers, Reed's promises. One note stood out, Evelyn says the vault's under the study floor. Wrong again. My mother was misleading him, keeping the real location, under the attic, for herself. Her manipulation was deeper than I'd thought, a chess game where even Nathan was a pawn. I called Tom, my voice steady. Publish everything, Grandma's tape, the photos, the notebook. Name my mother. He agreed, his article set to drop like a bomb. I posted one last X update, the truth is buried, but not for long. Marquette, who's guarding your legacy? It hit 70,000 views, the town alive with protests. What kind of family hides a fortune while betraying their own? I ask you, share this if you fought for what's yours. The vault was mine to open, and the courtroom would see their ruin. I returned to the house that night, the key in hand, my flashlight cutting through the dark. The attic's trapdoor clicked open, revealing a steel box, its lock etched with the same rune. I didn't open it, not yet. Nathan was still searching, and I needed him to think he was close. I texted Lila, keep him distracted tomorrow. Her reply was a single word, okay. My mother's next call went unanswered, her voice a ghost I'd silenced. Tom's article was hours away, and the ring, still in Hank's safe, was my bait. I'd let Nathan chase it, let my mother think she'd won, while I held the real key. The courtroom loomed, and I'd walk in with Grandma's truth, ready to burn their empire down. The attic trapdoor's click still echoed in my mind, the Nordic rune key a silent vow to unlock Grandma Ingrid's stolen legacy, while Nathan's frantic search for a vault he'd never find fueled my resolve. My ex-posts had Marquette roaring, 70,000 views, protests planned outside Reed's office, but the courtroom was where I'd end this. Tom Carver's article had dropped, exposing my mother's 1995 fraud and Nathan's Apex global deal, but I needed one final piece to seal their fate. The old Vance family home loomed before me, its sagging porch a testament to neglect, the air heavy with lake wind and betrayal. I'd slipped inside at dawn, avoiding Nathan's reckless rummaging, my flashlight tracing the attic's dust-covered beams. The steel box under the trapdoor was still there, unopened, but I wasn't ready to reveal it, not until I had everything. My phone buzzed with Lila's text, Nathan's meeting Mom at the museum tonight. They're scared. Good. Fear would make them sloppy, and I was ready to catch their final mistake. I drove to Brood Awakening, the cafe's hum a stark contrast to the storm I was brewing. Tom was there, his laptop open, his eyes sharp with the thrill of a story. Breaking wide. "Your article's got the mayor sweating," I said, sliding into the booth. He grinned, but it faded fast. "Found something else," he whispered, pushing a faded photo across the table, a young Evelyn, my mother, shaking hands with Reed in 1995, a Nordic artifact between them. "This was in the museum's archive, misfiled," he said. "It's not just the trust. Your mother was selling artifacts to Reed's contacts before the trust was even signed over." Before. The first shock hit like ice water. My mother's betrayal predated Grandma's coercion, a calculated plan to strip her legacy long before the 1995 papers. Her saintly facade, her family first mantra, it was a lie older than I'd known, and my father's silence had let it fester. I kept my face still, my historian's mind cataloging every detail. "There's more," Tom said, his voice low. He slid over a crumpled ledger page, its ink smudged but legible, a 1994 inventory of Grandma's artifacts, marked, transferred, to a private buyer, signed by my mother. "This was buried in Reed's old firm's records," he said. "Your mother didn't just sell ceramics, she sold a whole collection, claiming it was lost in a fire." A fire. The second blow landed, rewriting history. The fire at the family cabin, blamed on faulty wiring, was a cover, a story my mother spun to hide her theft. My father's quiet nods at family dinners, his "accidents happen" shrugs, they were complicity, not ignorance. I pocketed the photo and ledger, my voice cold. "Publish this, Tom. All of it." He nodded, his pen already moving, but I saw his glance flicker to the door. Someone was watching. I left the cafe, my pulse steady despite the eyes I felt on me. The museum was my next stop, its marble steps gleaming under streetlights, a monument to Marquette's history and my family's lies. Lila was waiting in the shadows of the loading dock, her face pale, her hands clutching a small envelope. "Nathan gave this to Mom," she whispered, shoving it into my hands. I took it from her purse. Inside was a handwritten note from Reed. "Evelyn, deliver the ring to Apex's rep tomorrow. Vault location confirmed, basement vault, museum." Basement vault. The third shock hit. My mother had lied to Nathan about the vault's location, sending him to the house while she guarded the real prize here. Her manipulation was a masterstroke, keeping even her own son in the dark to secure Apex's payoff. Lila's eyes begged for trust, but I kept my voice sharp. "Stay out of sight, Lila. You're in too deep." She nodded, her fear of my mother outweighing her guilt. I slipped into the museum's basement, my keycard granting silent access, the air cold and heavy with the scent of old stone. The vault was a locked storage room, its door unmarked but reinforced. The Nordic key didn't fit, confirming my suspicion. The attic was the true vault, and my mother's note was a decoy. But I searched anyway, finding a hidden panel behind a crate, its edges worn smooth. Inside was a small ledger, its pages listing artifacts sold in 1994, each one marked with my mother's initials. One entry stood out: sapphire ring, held for trust verification. Held. My mother hadn't planned to sell the ring at the festival, it was a ruse to distract from her real plan, delivering it to Apex for the vault's contents. I snapped photos, my hands steady, and sent them to Tom with a single word: "Now." His reply was instant: "Front page tomorrow." I posted on X from the basement, my words ablaze: "Some families burn their own history to hide their greed. Marquette, who's guarding your past?" It surged, 80,000 views in minutes, locals flooding the comments, some vowing to storm the museum's board meeting. My mother's call came, her voice a snarl: "You're destroying everything, Isadora." I let it go to voicemail, her panic. A cyanide cornered her. I met Tom at midnight by the lake, the wind howling, his eyes gleaming with the story's weight. "The ledger's enough for a fraud charge," he said. "But there's a witness, Clara Henshaw. She saw your mother and Reed in '94, planning the fire." Clara. The cafe gossip, the museum donor, wasn't just a bystander, she was a key, her silence bought until now. I nodded, my plan solidifying. "Get her to testify," I said. Tom agreed, his article set to break at dawn. I returned to the house, the attic's trapdoor my focus. The steel box opened with the Nordic key, revealing a single document, a 1995 trust deed, naming me as sole heir to lakefront land and artifacts worth millions. My mother's signature was absent, Grandma's clear and bold. My heart pounded, but I stayed calm, tucking the deed into my bag. Nathan's car pulled up. Outside, his flashlight sweeping the study below. I slipped out the back, my phone recording his frustrated curses. I posted the audio on X, blurred but damning, still searching for what's already found. "Marquette, who's hiding your truth? It hit 90,000 views, the town alive with outrage, locals demanding Reed's arrest. My father texted, Isadora, please, think of the family. I ignored him, his plea a ghost of his betrayal. What kind of family buries their own to save themselves? I ask you, share this if you fought for justice against your own. The courtroom was tomorrow, and I'd walk in with the deed, the ledger, and Clara's testimony, ready to end their empire. I met Lila at the pier before dawn, her face drawn, her hands empty. Nathan knows you were at the house, she whispered. He's desperate. I showed her the deed, my voice steel. This ends tomorrow. Help me, or you're with them. She nodded, her eyes wide, and handed me a USB drive. It's Nathan's emails with Apex, she said. They're planning to move the vault's contents tonight. I took it, my mind racing. My mother's decoy, Nathan's blind search. Clara's witness account, they were threads I'd weave into a noose. Tom's article was live, Marquette was watching, and the courtroom was mine. I posted one last X update, the truth is out, and it's louder than their lies. Marquette, stand with me. It hit 100,000 views, the town a powder keg. The ring was bait, the key was mine, and tomorrow, I'd burn their legacy to the ground. The courtroom's wooden benches creaked under the weight of Marquette's locals, their murmurs a low hum as I stood, my hands steady, clutching the trust deed, the Nordic rune key, and Tom's damning article. My mother sat across the room, her face a mask of forced calm, while my father's eyes avoided mine, his silence louder than ever. Nathan shifted beside them, his smugness gone, replaced by a twitch of panic as Clara Henshaw took the stand. My ex-posts had reached 100,000 views, the town a boiling cauldron of outrage, but this was where it ended, their lies, their theft, their betrayal of Grandma Ingrid's legacy. I'd spent the night before in the attic, the steel box open, revealing not just the deed but a 1995 contract, hidden behind a framed portrait of Grandma, its ink faded but clear. My mother had forged her signature, selling the family's lakefront estate to Reed's Shell Company. The sapphire ring, still in Hank's safe, was the key to a safe deposit box, not the attic vault, holding artifacts worth millions. My mother's empire was crumbling, and I was the one swinging the hammer. Clara's voice was steady, her words. A blade. I saw Evelyn and Reed in '94, planning to burn the cabin to cover the artifact sales. She spread lies about Ingrid's mental state to justify it. Lies about Grandma. The first shock landed, a gut punch to the courtroom. My mother hadn't just stolen, she'd defamed Grandma, painting her as unstable to silence questions about the lost ceramics. The judge's eyes narrowed, the crowd's whispers rising. Tom stood next, holding the forged contract, his voice cutting through the room. This document, found behind a portrait in the Vance home, proves Evelyn forged Ingrid's signature to sell the estate. Harold knew and did nothing. My father's head dropped, his complicity exposed. The second blow hit, his silence wasn't weakness but a choice, a betrayal as deep as my mother's schemes. I glanced at Lila, seated in the back, her face pale but resolute. She'd handed me Nathan's emails, proof of his Apex deal, and now she watched as the truth unfolded. I took the stand, my voice cold, controlled, each word a stone in their grave. The ring was never sold, it's in Hank Ballard's safe, meant for a safe deposit box holding Grandma's artifacts. The trust deed names me heir, not my mother. I held up the deed, its pages trembling slightly in my grip, and played Margaret's cassette, Grandma's voice echoing. Evelyn forced me to sign over everything. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of her words crushing. The third shock landed. My mother's tears, her pleas of family unity, were a performance, a decades-long manipulation to bury Grandma's truth. The judge called for order as locals gasped, some recording for X, my posts now viral at 120,000 views. Nathan tried to speak, but his lawyer silenced him. His emails, detailing Apex's plan to seize the lakefront, were already in evidence. Courtesy of Lila's betrayal. My mother's eyes met mine, not with anger but defeat, and I felt nothing, no pity, no pain, just clarity. The gavel fell, the ruling swift, the trust was mine, the forged contract void, my mother and Nathan liable for fraud. Reed faced charges, his Apex deal collapsing under scrutiny. The crowd erupted, locals chanting for justice, their phones lighting up with ex-posts tagging me as Marquette's truth teller. I walked out, the lake's wind sharp against my face, the ring retrieved from Hank's safe in my pocket, its sapphire glinting like Grandma's eyes. My mother's final text came as I reached my car, "You've ruined us." I deleted it, her voice a ghost I'd banished. The town was awake, protests outside Reed's office growing, my story shared across X, 150,000 views and climbing. What kind of family destroys their own to hide their greed? I ask you, share this if you fought for what's rightfully yours. The courtroom was over, but the truth was eternal, and I'd carved it into Marquette's heart, standing by Lake Superior, the waves crashing against the shore, I looked back on the war I'd fought. Every step, Lila's confessions, Margaret's tape, Tom's articles, the attic's secrets, was a battle against a family that chose greed over blood. The pain of their betrayal, sharp at first, had forged me, not broken me. I'd learned a truth colder than the lake's depths: family isn't owed loyalty, it's earned through trust, and when that trust is shattered, you don't owe them your silence. For those of you who felt the sting of a parent's manipulation or a sibling's ambition, know this: your strength isn't in forgiving them, it's in reclaiming what they stole, whether it's a legacy or your own voice. I fought not for revenge but for truth, and it's a fight worth having. To anyone facing their own family's shadows, I say this: stand firm, dig deep, and let the truth be your weapon. It's not about tearing them down, it's about building yourself up. If my story resonates, join me for the next chapter, subscribe to the channel, and let's keep shining light on the darkness.